Yo, what's going on? What's popping? What's popping? All right, how y'all doing? So I'm start here. I'm start by stating this right now. For so many times, I've stated the original goal of this space when it first began in 2008, and I've stated time after time after time again that the original intention of the original Black Manosphere, not the 2.0 sector, but the original Black Manosphere, or at the time was called the Black Male Collective Consciousness, or Black YouTube, or Black Male YouTube at the time. The intent of the space was to help elevate the societal conditions of so-called Black males. The intent was to help elevate the economic, social, and political conditions that so-called Black males, really as so-called Black people, but especially so-called Black males is facing. That was the intent. So if you create an online space or an organization or whatever, whichever entity that was dedicated in accomplishing the original goal, but later down the line, the original goal got derailed and got diverted into something different, then that alone means that that entity has failed. And this is and that's the case with the so-called Black Manosphere. What's going on, everybody? What's up? Alonzo Hall, what's going on? Iori666, salute. Soul Provider reacts, what's up? Go Professor, what's up? The Sir Yahoo Shalom. Yeah, what's going on, everybody, and everybody else? Hey, yo, and don't forget, click like this video. Even if you choose to cloud watch, at least put a like on it. But that alone shows that that entity has failed. And that's the case with the so-called Black Manosphere. The so-called Black Manosphere has failed in accomplishing its original goal at hand. Once the attention got diverted into people always worrying about what females are doing, what females are thinking, what type of males that these unqualified, low quality females are attracted to. How come Pookies and Ray Rays have sexual access to these low level bitches and the so called educated lames don't? The original intent of the so called Black Manosphere went from focusing on how to help elevate the conditions of Black males to focusing on how to get access to a demographic of females that are of bad quality. So that alone results in the failure of this space. Therefore, when you create a so-called meetup full of members of the space and call it the Black Manosphere Meetup without even trying to solve or without even trying to solve or trying to remedy the failure of the space, then what you have is a meetup of failure. And when you have people who are putting their hopes and wishes on a meetup that revolves around an online space that failed, then that means that people are putting their hopes and wishes on failure. And that's what you got right now when it comes to what's going on, Callie Jane. Hold on, let me make Callie Jane a mod. All right, Callie Jane, you got the wrench, Callie Jane. What's up? So what you have is people putting their hopes and wishes on failure. And this is the point we're at in this space. Where you had a person by the name of Theo Waff who allegedly spent $35,000 to schedule a conference in Atlanta, Georgia, and called it the Black Manosphere Meetup. And several of the people that partake in the Black Manosphere Meetup, we already know the names of these people. Right? I don't even need to go over the actual names. We all know the names of the people. We saw these individuals on video. You know, some of them look funny as hell, but that's for another story. I'm not here to speak about somebody's looks. Well, not yet. Shit. But yeah. And most of these content creators that we know who went to the meetup, all except for like two of them, do not really care or discuss anything concerning improving the conditions of the Black male collective. As a matter of fact, one of the individuals, one of the big name content creators who went to the meetup, has a history of stating that he has no intent in helping the collective. He's only in this space to entertain and make money. But this is the person, you know, and you had other people who came to the meetup who have that same intent. But of course, they haven't been honest with it. But you can see just based upon their actions and the type of content that they make on here, that they have the same intent as the person who openly say that they're not in this space in order to help the collective of Black males. They're in this space to entertain and make money. But this is the type of people who came to the space. Oh, excuse me. Well, who came to the space, but who also went to that meetup. And at the same time, you have people like the viewing audience who was putting their hopes that the meetup was going to somehow result in some sort of dramatic change that's going to improve the conditions of Black males, when they invited a person who openly state that they don't care about the collective Black males. You see where I'm going with this? What up, Third World Columbia? What's going on? You see where I'm going with this? And even in my prior video, and I gotta say this. At one point in time, I was dumb enough to put some sort of hope in that meetup. I was even dumb enough. So I have to So I can't sit there and point the finger at others without pointing the finger at myself when I fit that description too. And the reason why I put some sort of hope, I didn't put a lot, but I put some sort of hope in that meetup resulting in some sort of improvement, was because there were two content creators that I have a lot of respect for that went to that meetup, which was Sub-Zero 3639 and Keep It Techie. Both I still have respect for. Both of these content creators are some good brothers who put out a lot of good positive information. And because of those two, I put some sort of hope that the meetup would result in something positive. But at the same time, the little hope that I had got deterred because although Sub-Zero 3639 Keep It Techie are productive brothers that came to the meetup, but when I looked at the other content creators who came, I saw that the unproductive bitch ass niggas overshadowed the number of the productive content creators. And not only that, I also had to be realistic and come to the conclusion that basically I just described, how the meetup revolves around an online community that failed in accomplishing its original mission. So therefore, the little hope that I had for the meetup to result in something positive quickly went away. What's going on, Shaka Nulu? It quickly left my mind at a snap of a finger. Because reality came back in my head. I mean, according to what I know about the meetup, and I'm assuming what most of us know, most of us knew about this Black Manosphere meetup, that there were supposed to be two meetings, right? The first meet was supposedly to talk about how so-called black males can get their passports so they can travel and meet people and I guess meet females or just meet people from other countries. And if that's the case, I'm like, that shit doesn't make any sense, because why would somebody need to travel all the way to Atlanta just so they could know how to get a passport? That shit doesn't make sense. When all you can do is just fill out an application from the U.S. Department of State and just hand over that print out the application, hand it over to your local post office alongside with a payment of less than $200, like $130, and you get your passport. I mean, doing that costs way less than a round trip ticket to Atlanta, than paying for a round trip plane ticket to Atlanta, Georgia. Yo, Tyrone Church, Mike V, what's going on? And then the second meetup, and this is where I had some sort of hope for that meetup, was to speak about how black males can get involved in tech, in the tech world, and in the IT field. How so-called black males can have a career in the field of information technology, right? But then that didn't make sense, because once again, just as much as somebody doesn't need to pay for a round trip plane ticket to fly to Atlanta, in order to know how to get their passport. Likewise, due to channels like the Black Brain Trust, who still have plenty of content teaching people how they can enter the IT field, like channels like Tech G, who's run by the G Larry, who also create content teaching people on how they can enter the tech field, and also other channels on YouTube where they can learn that shit for free without having to pay for a plane ticket to go all the way out to Georgia. So, yeah. So it left me to ask this question, which is, what was the real motive behind that meetup? And not only that, another thing that didn't make any sense is that allegedly the only people who was able to get an invite were those who considered themselves to be conservatives, right? So so let me get this straight. Only people within who believes a certain political ideology can be invited into the meetup, but there were no political agenda within that meetup. I mean, how could you only invite conservative black males into the meetup when the meetup was never even going to speak about conservatism or have any type of political agenda? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Like any type of conference, whenever people schedule any type of conference, and the only people that will supposedly are invited to that conference are people who belong to a certain political ideology or a certain political party. It's usually a conference that revolves around having a goal or an agenda politically, in which people of that specific ideology or people of that specific party can benefit from. But that's not the case with the Black Manosphere meetup. So there's a lot of things about that meetup that just did not make any fucking sense. It did not. What it what it seemed like is just some sort of it's just another hangout. It's just people who was dumb enough to waste their money to get a round trip ticket to Atlanta, depending on which part of the country that they live in. Some people probably lived in the Atlanta area, and all they needed to do was drive to the hotel where the meet took place. Others came from other parts of the country where they had to fly to Atlanta. And you mean to tell me you're just going to fly? You're just going to take time out you're going to take time out your day, right? Time out your busy schedule if you have a busy schedule. Spend money on a round trip plane ticket to fly to Atlanta to a conference. Well, just to meet each other? Was that the goal? Was that the goal? The shit doesn't make any sense. And I remember I made a previous video called the Black Manosphere Meetup. Hold on for a minute. Hold on for a minute. Hold on for a minute, guys. Yo, I'll be right back, guys. Hold on. Yo, all right, I'm back. My fault. My bad about that. All right. Where was I at? Yeah. I remember previously I made a video called The Black Manosphere Meetup Equals Barnum and Bailey Circus, in which I made that video prior to the meetup happening. And I stated similar points that I'm making now in this video, on that video. And there was about maybe 2 members of the viewing audience who was commenting in the chat. And they made this comment similar to, well, I'm just basically paraphrasing what they were saying. They didn't say this verbatim, but I'm just paraphrasing what they said. They said something like, because being that I was criticizing the meetup before it even happened, so there were people within the audience who was commenting in the chat who said, quote, people are condemning something before it even happened, or people are trying to destroy something before even giving it a chance. And the thing is that it was not that I was condemning something without giving it a chance first. It's the thing is that, like I said, it revolves around a failing space. The meetup revolves around an online community that has failed in reaching its original agenda. So even though at that time I had a little hope for it, but how could I give it? How could I give it? Or how could anyone with the same mind actually have high expectations for such a meetup when there was no real agenda at hand? How could someone have high expectations for this meetup when, once again, like I said before, when it revolved around an online community that has failed in accomplishing its original goal at hand? And let me say this while you guys are listening. I think that shout outs to Big J Triple X, by the way, because I think that a lot of you guys are not remembering something. Well, I don't think a lot of you guys was in this space around that time, because Big J Triple X have told people that this is not the first Black Manosphere meetup. This was not the first meetup that ever happened, because a lot of people are acting like this is the first time that this online space had some sort of conference, had some sort of get together where different content creators in this space came to one city and met together, had a conference. This is not the first time this happened. There was a meetup within this online space back in 2014 that consisted of Tommy Sotomayor, Azrael the One, I think his name is called Azrael the One at that time, Equasi 100, also known as the brother of logic and common sense, and a few other people that was in this space back in 2014, and they met in New York City. That was the first Black Manosphere meetup, if you really want to call it that. It's just that, of course, at that time, it was just not, people in this space didn't utilize the title Black Manosphere. I think that was the only difference, is that the label of that meetup was not called the Black Manosphere meetup because, of course, the label of this space, Black Manosphere, did not exist at that time. But nonetheless, it was people involved in the same space at the time that flew to New York to meet each other. And it was the same result. The same result was nothing. Nothing came out of it. Rod of God podcast, what's up? Nothing came out of it. Nothing came out of it. Why? Because there was no real agenda. There was no real agenda at hand in order to help the Black male populace. I mean, so this is what a lot of you guys in this space need to understand, is that you can't put your hopes on something or on a conference or on some sort of meetup that has no real agenda. See, the thing is with so-called Black people is that a lot of us, like, it seems like a lot of us are so quick to expect something great to come out of something, even though we witness this thing resulting in failure time after time after time again. It's like what you see now. You see more and more so-called Black males who would like to see. It seems like who would like to see a positive outcome within the Black male populace. But this expectation that they have sometimes blind people from actual reality. And this is what you see in this space, where people are blinded by the desire to want to see Black males do good, but fail to see the reality that this online space has constantly failed in accomplishing this, due to the fact that that as much as you have people in the space who want to see Black males do good, you also have a lot of people in this space who, like Big J would say, who get in the way and cause interference of so-called Black males as a collective actually improving their condition. Because you have a whole lot of people in this space who just have their own ulterior motives. And a lot of it is based off of capitalizing off of your own misery. Dante S. Black Crows, what's up? Exactly, Black Curls. Exactly. Exactly. People need to ask themselves this question. What's the definition of insanity? People need to ask themselves this question, man. Exactly. Yes, yes, another great statement, Third Ward. Black folks are looking for saviors and messiahs to guide and help them. You know what? You're absolutely correct. So I gotta rephrase my statement. It's because so-called, well, actually, hold on. I'm not gonna rephrase my statement because my statement is correct, but your statement is correct also. So, but I'll say this: you have a lot of people, so-called black people in general, who claim to want to see positive outcomes for the collective, but they want these positive outcomes to happen by way of a messiah and a savior to help the whole collective, which that's not going to happen in reality. In reality, in order for the collective to actually have true economic, social, and political improvement, everybody or the majority of people within that collective need to put in the necessary work to improve the conditions of the whole collective. And one of that has to be individual improvement. Individual improvement by each and every member of the collective needs to happen. And then they can form like Voltron and put their resources together and be politically active in helping to place policies that would benefit the collective. While also practicing economic independence. But this is work that the entire collective needs to engage in. It's not one or two or three people be some sort of messiah, and that one or two or three people just do all the work, while 99% of the damn collective benefit off the work of one or two people. No, that's not realistic. And this is what we see within the collective, and this is what we see within the so-called Black Manosphere. So, Man of Tomorrow was right what he said. And you know what? This video is basically me piggybacking off of what Man of Tomorrow stated in his most recent video when he talked about the same topic. When he stated that what you have in this space is that you have people hoping that a man like Theo Waff become the messiah of the educated lanes. He was on point with that. So this is what you see when it comes to the viewing audience within the so-called Black Manosphere. They was hoping that Theo Waff was going to be the messiah of a failed online community through this meetup that happened in Atlanta. People was hoping that this one guy would just spend his hard-earned money, and by spending his hard-earned money and having, two conferences in that meetup, that it would somehow just save the Black male collective, or at least the educated lames. And realistically, that's that's not going to happen. The way for this space to remedy its failure is for this space to go back and concentrate and work on the original goal of the space, which was what I said before, to help improve the economic, political, and social conditions of so-called Black people, and especially so-called Black males. No, my problem is not with Theo, Dante. I never said that. You know what? Let me tell y'all something. Y'all motherfuckers really need to have some sort of y'all need to improve in y'all comprehension skills, man. Because you mean to tell me, okay, I've been speaking for about 35 minutes and 21 seconds. And you mean to tell me for over 35 minutes, the only conclusion that you've gotten is that I have a problem with Theo? I don't have a problem with Theo. I don't even know him to have a problem with him. But what I do have a problem with is the high expectations that a lot of people in the space had for this meetup. When this meetup never had any true goals at hand. So when it comes to this topic of discussion, I don't have a personal problem with Theo. But I have a personal problem with the failure of this overall space and the failure of the meetup and the failure of the meetup, because the meetup never had any real goals at hand. That's my problem. My issue is the results of failure. And my issue is also how a lot of people in this space had high expectations for this meetup that revolves around a space that failed. So my issue is the failure of this space. That's my issue. The fuck? Yo, man, listen. I want you niggas to listen here. Refrain from saying some retarded ass shit on my goddamn channel. Don't sit there and ask a question based on something that I never said. You know, I guess Dante S assumed that, or his question, or he questioned, did I have an issue with Theo just because I said that MOT was right, that the space wanted Theo to be a messiah for the educated lames. If I said that, if me and Men of Tomorrow, if we agree that people in the space was hoping that Theo Waff to become a messiah for educated lanes, then the problem is, well, on my end, is not with Theo. The problem is with the thinking of the people in this space. So not only do I have an issue with the failure of this space, I also have an issue with the way of thinking of this space. Just like I have an issue with your thinking, Dante S, to assume that just because I made that point that I have an issue with Theo. But I don't have a personal issue with you. I don't have an issue with you, but I have an issue with your lack of comprehension. You know, it's possible for you to have an issue with the outcome of something without having an issue with the person personally. But anyhow, what up, Preem? What up? Preem, what up? Preem, long time no see. What up, Bishop? Yo, what's going on, Bishop? How you doing? I mean, if we're going to have a meetup and label the meetup as, or put the Black Manosphere label on the meetup, especially if we're going to do that, shouldn't be based on addressing a lot of the problems that the Black male collective suffer from. Shouldn't it be a meetup where we could put our minds together or put ideas together and address some of the issues that Black males as a collective suffer from, such as high homelessness rate? Do you know the rate of homelessness among so-called Black males is high? I mean, the only demographic of people who have a higher homelessness rate than so-called Black males would be Native American males. But outside of that, outside of Native American males, Black males in America, who was what? Black males alone, adult Black males alone, we're about what? Less than 10% of the American population. But yet, outside of Native American males, we make up the highest rate of homeless men in America. Black males happen to have some of the highest unemployment rates in America. So-called Black males have some of the highest homicide rates in America. Black males perform worse than any other demographic in America's public education system. Black males have some of the lowest reading levels in America. Like, based off what I was reading a few months ago, is that a small amount of Black male eighth graders are able to read within their grade level. I think that it was around maybe 10 to 20%. It say that on average, on average in America, they say about what, 80 to 90% of Black male eighth graders read below their below grade level. I mean, these are some of the things that we have to look at as so-called Black males. So if we're going to fly to a city and have a conference, these are the issues that we should be putting on the table and talk about and brainstorm, put our ideas in and figure out what can we do to solve these things. Perfect Timing Podcast was good. Was good, Bronzebird. You mean to tell me some people from different parts of the country are going to meet up in Atlanta in order to figure out how could so-called Black males get their passports? I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The fuck? And then you mean to tell me that the viewing audience placed their hopes on that bullshit? The fuck? Yo, you're putting your hopes on failure. Time after time after time, we've witnessed how this space has failed. I mean, like I said earlier in this video, that one of the ways this space failed is that the attention shifted away from talking about the problems of Black males to talking about so-called Black females, and how can the so-called educated lane have sexual access to these females. Another example of how this space failed is when during 2015 and 2016, from 2015 to I'll say 2017, how you have plenty of people within this space who voted for Donald Trump when he was running for president due to them believing that Donald Trump being president would cut off government assistance, which would make so-called Black females, which would place so-called Black females in a position to be economically destitute to the point that their level of poverty would have them run back to the negotiation table and negotiate their femininity in exchange for Black males' resources. Yo, that shit is crazy. That shit sounds crazy to me. You mean to tell me you're going to place your vote for a politician just for that? But nonetheless, after 4 years of Donald Trump, we didn't see those cuts. Those cuts didn't happen. So that's another failure of the so-called Black Manosphere. Instead of us coming together as so-called Black males and weaponizing our vote to vote for the candidate who is best qualified to place policies that would assist that would improve the Black male collective, instead of us coming together and doing something like what Ice Cube tried to do with his contract with Black America, instead of us doing that and placing our initiatives in the seat of both candidates and say, hey, listen, our vote is going to go to the candidate who will most loyal to our initiative. Instead of doing that, we're going to vote for someone just having hope that that person that we vote for is going to somehow put Black females in a position to become economically destitute to the point that they'll somehow submit to Black males once their welfare goes away. As if every single so-called Black female in America is on government assistance. Now, realistically, if that ever happened, a lot of so-called Black males will be out in the street, because you have a lot of so-called Black males who are sitting here living off of these females who are on government assistance. But that's another topic. But that's a failure. That's one failure of the so-called Black Manosphere. Another failure of the so-called Black Manosphere is how you have the so-called educated lane versus the so-called Pookie and Ray Ray debates, right? The so-called educated lane going against the so-called Pookies and Ray Ray, and if you really sit back and observe what that educated lane versus Pookie and Ray Ray debacle was all about, It was all about females. That's what it was all about. The people who consider themselves to be the educated lames of this space, for the most part, are upset at the fact that unqualified, uncultured females are giving sexual access to unqualified and uncultured males. Meanwhile, the so-called Pookies and Ray Rays believe that they're somehow superior from their so-called educated lames because they have sexual access to unqualified and uncultured females. This is some shit. Another failure of the so-called Black Manosphere, due to mainly Obsidian's bitch ass and other people who their talking points have opened the door for incels to come into the space and cry about how unqualified and uncultured females haven't given them sexual access. Another failure of this space, how during the 2020 presidential elections, how they were stupid enough to think that Donald Trump was going to be reelected. And I broke it down. I was one of the first, probably the only person in this space who actually put out information that properly predicted that Joe Biden was going to beat Donald Trump in the 2020 election. I still have this video up due to and I put information from a scholar by the name of Alan Lichtman, who for over 30 years properly predicted the winner of every presidential election. And he utilized a certain set of scales that helped them help them properly predict every single president or the winner of every single presidential election for more than 30 years. I put that out there, but that flew over a lot of people's heads. All right. Not that I'm a fan of Joe Biden, but if you're going to sit there and think that Donald Trump was going to get elected, and you have not even sat back and observed the political landscape of that time, when so many Americans was pissed off at Donald Trump, then I don't know what to say. But nonetheless, you guys was blinded by hope. Your hope of somehow black females becoming economically destitute, thus leaving them in a position where they have no choice but to go to this negotiation table with black males and negotiate their femininity for black males' resources, blinded you from the reality that Trump's time as president was expiring. So when Joe Biden won the election, That was another failure of the so-called Black Manosphere. Another failure of the so-called Black Manosphere. Believing that conspiracy theory of somehow Trump being a victim of voter fraud. And Supreme Courts from different states concluded that there was no evidence. You know, as Trump was going to the Supreme Court of each state to try to have a case against each state when it comes to voter fraud, the Supreme Court handed down their conclusion that there was no evidence to prove any form of voters fraud. That's a failure. That's another failure of the so-called Black Manosphere. Like, how many examples? How many? All right, Dante S., you don't get the angle. Hey, you want professional Black men to have a conference to talk about Black homelessness? Yo, Dante S., dog, you know what, Dante S., the thing is that, like I said before, your comprehension skills is fucked up, dog. I'm not gonna waste my time with you. I specifically stated that the so-called Black Manosphere, when it started as an online space in 2008, the initial goal was to solve the social, political, and economic issues of so-called Black males. Thus, if you're going to have a meeting and you're especially going to put the Black Manosphere label on it, then that meeting should be to help to find ways to brainstorm and help find ways to improve the conditions, the social, political, and economic conditions of so-called Black males. And when I spoke about the high homelessness of Black males, I gave one out of many examples of how Black males are marginalized systematically. So yes, helping to solve Black male homelessness is one example of helping to solve the issues that Black males go through. But is that one of the only things that I state that should consist of a true Black Manosphere meeting? No. There are other problems that Black males go through that needs to be solved. So Dante S., if you don't get that, I suggest you take your Black ass and get the fuck out of my goddamn channel. I can't stand a motherfucker that got bad fucking comprehension skills, man. That shit get on my motherfucking nerves, man. It's like I'm wasting my motherfucking oxygen full of you niggas that got cow shit inside your fucking ears, man. The fuck is wrong with you niggas? Listen, you guys have to get off that. Whatever type of fucking methamphetamines that you guys get high on, stop it. Stop it. Yeah, no doubt. Said that issue triggers me because I run into many young brothers who I attempt to help and they don't get it. Right. Good Lord. Good Lord, man. Listen, if a lot of you niggas can't fucking comprehend what comes out of my mouth, you better off unsubscribing. Just unsubscribe. Alonzo Hall says, fellas, I'm going live shortly to address the infinite banking concept as well as buy term invest the rest. All right. All right, yo, Dante, yo, excuse me, not this bitch ass nigga Dante. Alonzo Hall, put a link, put a link to your channel for so people could go to your channel and watch you live. Yeah, I'm crying. I'm crying. Once again with your fucked up comprehension skills. I'm crying. Yeah, I got tears coming out of my eyes. I'm crying and stuff like that. So Dante, you haven't listened yet? I told you to get the fuck out of off of my channel. Get off of my channel. It's obvious you can't comprehend. Stop typing. Get off my chat. Get off my channel. Unsubscribe. You want me to help you out? I'll help you out. I'll help your ass out. Hold on for a minute. I'll help you out. Got it. Damn. Y'all niggas comprehend. Y'all niggas need to improve in your comprehension skills. I'm like, you guys is, you have people in here who are asking questions on things that I never stated. You have people who do that. And I do have conferences. You don't need to pay whichever amount of money in a hotel to have a conference. You do know that, right? You do know, due to modern technology, you can have a conference with people from all around the world just by sitting down in the comfort of your own home. Why do you think something called StreamYard exists? Why do you think something called Zoom exists? Why do you think apps like WebEx exist? So I do have conferences when it comes to things like that. I do. Most of y'all don't know about it. You don't know about it, but I do. Bars. Bars, nigga. Bars. Bars. Yeah, that's what it is. And I never really said nothing bad about his YouTube daddy. I just said that people expect him to be the messiah of the so-called educated lanes. That's all I said. I didn't say anything bad about him. So when I say that, I'm actually directing my comments on those who look up to him as their YouTube daddy. I'm not speaking about their YouTube daddy per se, because I got nothing personal against Theo Waff. I don't know him. I don't know him. He don't know me. And that's the thing when it comes to that's the thing when it comes to giving criticism. When you give constructive criticism, you have a lot of so-called black males who don't have an inch of masculinity inside of them. Thus, when you critique something that they hold dear, they then start acting stupid, like acting like Scooby-Doo or something like, what you said? Do you got a problem with your wife? You know what I'm saying? Oh, Scooby-Doo sound ass motherfucker. You got a problem with your wife? You know, they start, when you critique something, when you give constructive criticism to something that these bitch-made so-called black males hold in high esteem, their logic, what a little that they have, goes away. And you see, and what you see based on their behavior is more estrogen being pumped inside of them, in which they act all confused. They don't comprehend what you say. And then they want to claim that you're crying and utilize that as a shaming tactic when all you're doing is giving criticism to what you see. You basically pointing out what you observe about something. But because so many bitch-made niggas hold something into high esteem and you criticize that, they want to try to shame you for it. And trying to utilize a silent tactic too, because when that Dante S dude told me, why don't I hold my own conference and stop crying about it? It was a silent tactic and a shaming tactic at the same time. See, him not knowing what I do out in the real world, he thought I never have conferences. So he did that. He said that one way as a way to silence me, to try to silence me, because he didn't like me criticizing what his ass hell did to him. And at the same time, he was trying to shame me by telling me to not cry about it. But usually it's so funny because the people that cry are the ones who try to shame and silence the person giving constructive criticism to what they hold dear. And then when you tell this motherfucker, if you can't comprehend what I'm saying, just leave. They want to sit there and argue with you and type and argue. I don't got time for that shit, man. Yeah, Callie Jane. They project their behavior onto you in an attempt to deflect from their actual behavior. Exactly. Shaggy? Shaggy? That's how they act. You know, the thing is, a lot of you male, you know, the thing is with a lot of so-called black males, and it's sad that I have to say this. It's like, yo, it's like when God created man, right? You know, when God created man, and he had all his ingredients, right? Now, somehow, some way, God ran out of masculinity, right? He ran out of the masculinity ingredient, so he needed a replacement to create the rest of certain men, right? So he found an ingredient called bitch assness and replaced it, you know, as a replacement because he ran out of masculinity. So therefore, you have a lot of males in this earth who grew up with a lot of bitch assness and turned into bitch ass niggas, in which they're no different than they nappy headed mamas. And they want to come online and on social media and trying to argue with people after someone tells them to leave. I'm not doing that. But back to the topic. When I was providing a list of the many different failures of the so-called Black Manosphere, I was stating these things to show you the history of failure within this space. So when you have the viewing audience who witness these many examples of failure and expect this Black Manosphere meetup to result in some sort of change, to result in something different, that's not going to happen. Realistically, that's not going to happen. Especially when you have people within the meetup, who participated in the space failing. Like, you can't expect something productive to come out of a conference or a meetup when it consists of people who are responsible of the space failing. So people are sitting there putting their hopes on failure. You can't do that. You can't put your hopes on failure. Because when you put your hopes on failure, it's like what Black Curl said earlier in the stream, or better yet, what Albert Einstein said. It's insanity. And what is insanity? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that's what you're doing when you're putting your hopes on failure. You're putting your hopes on failure. You're seeing the same thing over and over again, but yet you expect a different result. No, when you see failure keeps happening, the only result you're going to see is more failure. So what do you do about that? You remedy, in order for you to, okay, what do you do in case of having conferences within the Black Manosphere? What do you do what do you do in order for the conference to be a more productive conference? Well, first, you got to have an actual agenda, an actual true substantial agenda dedicated in helping to improve the conditions of the collective. And the people who should take part of this of that sort of conference are people who are proven and have a track record of being productive individuals and having a track record of helping others. And not only that, when it comes to this space, you then remedy well, before you have this conference, you remedy the failures of this space by dedicating yourself on accomplishing the original intent of this space. Thus, your content should be based on the original intent of this space, in which I stated plenty of times before, to help improve the systemic issues that Black males go through, or to help improve the economic, political, and social conditions of so-called Black males. And leave retarded ass niggas like Dante S. out, who can't comprehend a goddamn thing. who can't even comprehend the words get out. High fructose bitch assness. Oh my gosh, and it's very common when it comes to the people in this fucking space. What Shaka Nulu says, I've always said that men should have the opportunity to meet other men in this space. But if I announce a meeting to be something it really wasn't, then it literally was just meeting up. Exactly. Exactly, Shaka Nulu. You know, I don't have anything against brothers meeting up. I don't have anything against that. I don't have anything against brothers in this space meeting each other and just meeting. But like Shaka Nulu says in this comment that I highlighted right here, is that when you announce the meeting to be something that it really wasn't, that's a problem. Now, if they said that it was just if they announced the meeting as just a hangout, brothers just get together and we just hang out and whatever, I wouldn't give a fuck. But like Shaka Nulu says, if it's presented, well, actually, you know what? Even though I don't have a problem with brothers hanging out, but the way my mind works is that if you're going to hang out, right? If you want to hang out and meet each other some way, somehow, and you came from this space some way, somehow, you guys eventually have to come to the conclusion, say, you know what? Let's meet up next time. Let's do like you got to eventually end up come to the conclusion saying, you know what? Now that we're meeting up and that, we're familiar with each other, we see each other, we call each other, we hang out. When will we sit down and discuss business and discuss actually putting the real work out here for the collective? Eventually, brothers in this space hanging out and hanging out and having a good time, it should eventually result in what I just said. That is if your intent, that is if we have the true intent in helping the Black male collective. Exactly, Callie Jane. You might as well be productive while you hang out. But yo, I'm done speaking. You know what? I'm going to invite, I'm going to open the panel. I'm going to open the panel just in case that people have something to say. Because I've been speaking for way too long. Damn, I've spoken for over an hour. Shit. So I'm going to open the panel. Now, if any of you guys plan to come on the panel, you guys know my rules. Respect me. Respect the other potential panelists that's on the panel. One person speaks at a time. No interruptions. And this time we have to stay on topic. Oh, when I put the link out, now the number of my views start to decrease. Why are you running for? Why you guys are running? I put the link out there. You got something to say it. And let me add another rule, which is common sense, or which should be common sense. Please have good comprehension skills. If your ass do not have good comprehension skills, don't bother coming up on my fucking panel. I'm sick and tired of people with bad comprehension skills coming on my channel. I can't stand that shit. That shit is annoying as fuck. What's going on, Joe W? So nobody's coming on? No one's coming on the panel? All right, so I guess I'll end it. All right, cool. So I'm out of here.